Well, I want to thank our two special guests from the Salt Lake City Chamber of Commerce. We have with us today Vicki. Is it Varela, Vicki?
Yes, yes.
And then Linda Wardell. Both of them past award recipients for ATHENA at the local level here in Salt Lake City. And we were supposed to get together in person today, but the weather was not accommodating. Salt Lake has been getting pounded this winter. I think you guys have probably, much like the West Coast in California and Arizona too, have reached, I think, their year allotment of precipitation in the first 3 months. Yes.
Yes. It's been spectacular. We're now at 800 inches at some of our ski resorts.
Oh my goodness, that is incredible. Much needed in these times of drought. But thank you. Would you all mind sharing a little bit about yourselves? Vicki, you want to go first?
Sure. So I am the tourism director for the state of Utah. I've been in this role for almost 10 years.
Wow.
It's the longest I've ever spent in any role in my entire career because I got here and I fell in love with it. It's a real privilege to sell the state of Utah. And my career has been sort of the nexus between the public and the private sectors.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been inspired by bringing people together in a collaborative way to build the community. Some of those opportunities have been around building out a master plan community called Daybreak in the state of Utah. And many of those opportunities have been around consulting, bringing people together, and then serving in a series of public policy roles, from the deputy chief of staff to our governor, to an assistant commissioner of higher education. And this role has brought all these things together in a way that's given me a lot of joy.
Wow, that's incredible. Do you have a one fun fact about Utah that maybe not a lot of people know?
Well, you can do virtually anything here. We have one of my favorite ways of describing our state is that if Colorado and Arizona had a love child, they would name it Utah.
I love it. I love it. I remember when I was growing up, and my parents we traveled here quite often, and when they told me we were going to Utah, I guess I was just a toddler at the time. And they would say, we're going to Utah. It's like, yay, we're going to Metah. We're going to Metah. And they were like, no, Utah. Yeah, Metah. That's a fun memory that I have when we were traveling when I was growing up. I love coming to this state. It is absolutely stunningly gorgeous and diverse in its demographic and its topography is just, oh, wow. Everything from the great rivers for river running to the mountains to the grasslands, and so you can do, like you said, anything here. My favorite memory was coming to Salt Lake and swimming in the Great Salt Lake when I was growing up. Yeah, it's a gorgeous state. Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing. All right, Linda, how about a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you. Well, I am the general manager of City Creek Center, which is the retail portion of a large mixed-use development in downtown Salt Lake City. I came to Metah to build and open City Creek Center, and interestingly, it was my 17th move in my career. And so when I arrived in Salt Lake City, I told my company that I'd fallen in love with Utah and it was my last move, that I wasn't going to move anymore. No more openings, no more construction. I really wanted to stay here. And so I've been here now for about 12 years, and it's been such a delight to not only operate this beautiful shopping center that has a retractable roof and a 1,200-foot long creek running through it and many unique features, that truly make it a must-see destination for anyone coming to our great city here, but also to become a part of the community. We've been able to really become integrated into the community, do some interesting things here that we don't always have the opportunity to do, because City Creek Center is such a special place. When it opened, there was a very smart man in our community who said that City Creek Center was the biggest thing that had happened in Utah in about 100 years. And while that might have been a little bit dramatic, many people do think that it's been a catalyst for a lot of development in our city. And we've certainly enjoyed the center's success as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'll have to make sure I get over there before I leave town.
Shopping is mandatory.
That's great. That's awesome. I love it. Well, have either of you spent a lot of time working in predominantly male dominant fields in dealing with not a lot of women around you as you've been working through the years?
Yeah, I think we both have stories.
I'd love to hear some.
Linda, I'll defer to you.
Well, so commercial real estate, which is what I'm really a part of, is definitely a male-dominated field. My company, the Taubman Company, is not unlike any other commercial real estate company. There are a lot of men, but our chairman has really been passionate about developing women for a long time. And so I've had many opportunities at Taubman, because the Taubman brothers have really been open to promoting women into positions where you don't often see them, including positions like mine, for quite some time. And so it's been a very comfortable environment for me to work at Taubman and to receive frequent promotions. And I really didn't think a lot about being a woman in my field until I moved to Salt Lake City. And when I arrived in Salt Lake City, I walked into one of the first major meetings that I was a part of, and there were about 50 men in the room, and I was the only woman. And that was one of the first times that had ever happened to me in my career. And I realized that things were very different here. There in Salt Lake City, there were at that time, about a decade ago, not a lot of women in leadership positions. And there were some men, not all men, who were not comfortable with having women in leadership positions, particularly not high-profile positions. And so it was an interesting time for me. And I quickly learned that everything I did was under a microscope and was being watched by lots of people, and that there were some people who were bold enough to come up to me and tell me that I was not going to succeed because I was a woman, and that I shouldn't be in the position I was in because I was a woman. And so I had to think sort of carefully about how I was going to manage feedback like that as well.
How did you face that?
Well, I'm fortunate in that I have a great support network, both personally and professionally. And, my boss is the first one who I'll credit. I remember calling him and being sort of thrown, by these things that were being said to me. And he sort of laughed at me, not in a mean way, but he said, you don't listen to anything anyone tells you. Why are you going to listen to something, like this that's so ridiculous? You've done this before. You've opened multiple shopping centers. You've always been very successful, in a position like this. Why would you stop and think twice about something like this that someone has said to you? And that was a very helpful perspective. He was right. I didn't need to listen to anything negative like that. I needed to just keep moving and do the things that I knew were right to do. And then I had a very helpful network of women who were here in Salt Lake City that were very helpful to me. And some of those women were in the process of forming an organization, a nonprofit organization that's called the Women's Leadership Institute. And I got very involved with the Women's Leadership Institute, which is focused on elevating women into corporate boards, advancing women into leadership positions in their careers, and to helping women get elected into political office. which is a problem that we have in Utah. We don't have enough women elected into political office. And I'm happy to say that a decade later, we're far better off in all of those things than we were, 10 years ago. And so I think by being a part of something like the Women's Leadership Institute, I was sort of able to channel all of that angst into a much more, productive direction and help make things better.
That's fantastic. Thank you for doing that important work and collaborating with those other women to make a difference. And I'm glad that you listened to your boss's advice.
Me too. He's pretty amazing.
That's great. It's important to have those male allies. Yeah, for sure. Vicki, how about you? Do you have?
Well, I just want to acknowledge that Linda has played such an important role in advancing female authority and leadership in the community, among the first female chairs of the Salt Lake Chamber, and always there to in selection processes and in organizing strategies. She's always there to make sure that we have a diversity of voices. So it's been a real gift to our community.
Thank you.
I also have been in many rooms where I was the only woman in the room. And I feel very fortunate that early in my career, as I was having these experiences, I can look back now and realize that I was pretty much gender blind. And I was fortunate to work there was always a handful of men that were also gender blind. And it wasn't even until I looked back, I was very fortunate to be involved in issues that I cared so deeply about that a lot of the noise didn't really dawn on me until much later. And fortunately, I feel like things have changed measurably in this community, even in the years that Linda has been here, so that it's very rare for me now to walk into a room and be the only woman. I now feel like there are many strong female leaders that are given the authority, the bandwidth to do very meaningful things. And so now, as I'm more senior in my position, I just feel this responsibility to be doing my part to always expand that, to be a vigorous advocate for emerging female leaders. And so it's as a whole, it's being a professional, despite your gender, means that you have to have a lot of inner strength. And there are some particulars that come with being a female leader.
Yes, I would agree with that. No one says, how lonely leadership can be at times.
Yeah.
And talks about it because it's and especially when you're involved, with friends too, in particular organizations, and how you navigate that. Have you ever come up against some situations where that came into play?
Linda, I'll defer to you.
Well, I think that, anytime you have to make a hard choice or an unpopular choice, certainly it can feel lonely as a leader. I have one of my team members currently will come into me sometimes and say, I'm always reminded that being the leader is the loneliest job on the team, and I just want to check on you and make sure you're okay. And he seems to sort of have this innate talent for knowing when I need somebody to check on me, which is really sweet.
That is sweet.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, I think that, it can be you're making a difficult decision, or, you've made a hard choice, or, I think there are other things that sometimes can cause you to be lonely as a leader, where someone questions your integrity, or there is conflict on the team, or, there are things like that that can happen that make it a very lonely time. And I think what I found in those situations to be effective, at least for me, is to just be as calm as you can be. And I try to just bring a sense of peace to all of those situations, because I don't do well with drama. I don't do well with anger. And so I just try to bring a sense of peace, to whatever it is that's going on, to help everyone have that same sense of peace about it. And if we can talk openly and honestly about what's going on, it's not usually, the big deal that everybody is, so worked up about, if we can just get the facts out on the table and relieve some of the drama.
In the past, I've often struggled with that unhealthy coming from my wounded childhood, of not learning how to do it right and how to deal with conflict right. And it's I'm a work in progress, but having someone that is a calm in the face of that can help me kind of ground myself. I'm learning how to ground myself and to calm my inner Tasmanian devil, so to speak. But I think that's some really sage advice. Thank you for that. How about you, Vicki? Have you found that to be true at all?
Yeah, I think these difficult times are the opportunity for us to double down on our core values. And I think about the Athena values. I happen to have them in front of me. And really, if I can live to those values every day, and then double down even more on them in times of crisis, it's actually amazing, the growth. I'm just going to read them. You know them, but
please do.
They're remarkable. Live authentically, learn constantly, build relationships, foster collaboration, act courageously, advocate fiercely, give back and celebrate. And certainly we play to different aspects of those at different times. But in crisis, that is a mantra to double down on, and to eventually celebrate the team growth and the personal growth that can come from it.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think back on when Martha, our founder, was told 41 years ago, women are not leaders. And that's what started ATHENA International. And she felt like if women were acknowledged and recognized for their leadership accomplishments and achievements and strengths, that they could no longer be dismissed. And 10 years later, she found these common characteristics popping up in hundreds and the hundreds of women that had been honored from all around the world. And that's when the research had been done with funding from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. And they found that these are the ways in which women lead, a more inclusive, more collaborative style of leadership. And in reality, it's the way great leaders lead. And that's why I feel it imperative to get it into the hearts and minds of as many people as possible. And I completely agree with you. And that's one of my goals. One of my goals is on this ATHENA Enlightenment Tour is to get out and amplify the local leaders that are doing the good work in the communities, and trying to bring a balance in leadership voices worldwide. And because that brings a whole breadth of new learnings that we can have. But selfishly, I'm learning so much from all of you, and also getting myself closer to those principles, and trying to embody them as much as I can. I really appreciate you saying that. That was really good. So what's the best advice that you've had that anyone has given you in your career? Either of you have something that comes to mind with that?
Okay, Vicki first this time.
You'd want to pass along to?
I have two streams of thought. One of them is when I was in college, I loved bulletin boards, and I would spend a lot of time in front of the bulletin board because it was sort of the social media of the day to help you understand what's going on in the world. And I saw a little workshop about self-defeating behaviors. And that workshop was so powerful for me to start to separate my impulses into behaviors that would build strength, personal strength and strength for people around me, and behaviors that might feel good for a nanosecond and then actually end up doing damage, diminishing me and people around me. That was just super powerful for me.
I completely can relate to that. I completely relate to that. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that's so important, that a lot of times we do kind of adopt self-limiting beliefs of ourselves. And there's been a common thread that I've been hearing so far through all the interviews that I've been having. And one is imposter syndrome, and that it's still very prevalent. And that's that self-limiting belief of not thinking we're not leaders, or that we're not good enough, or that we don't belong at the table, that are not serving us or anyone around us. But have you found that keeping that in the forefront of your mind has gotten you through some difficult times in your career?
Yes, I think it actually goes back to some of the other things that we talked about, that if you start eliminating the self-defeating behaviors as soon as you feel that impulse, then it just opens up more space for working collaboratively, for being fierce advocates for others. It just creates a wide open field of optimistic scenarios. And I think over time, I was very fortunate to stumble into that at a young age. Over time, it just becomes part of your psyche, I think.
That's great. Well, it's obviously served you well. Thank you for sharing that. Linda, do you have anything that comes to mind?
Well, about 15 years ago, I read a book by Brene Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection. And it was a life-changing moment for me. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I think many of us are. And, there was one line in there that Brene Brown wrote that said, comparison is the thief of happiness. And I probably say that to myself about, once a day, because I think, we all want to live authentically. And I think not only do we want to live authentically, we want to be authentic in everything that we do. And when I realized that I didn't have to compare myself or my progress or the choices I was making or how I was living to anyone else, that I just needed to be me. It's that simple. Just be me. And there's only one me, and I need to be it. I just needed to live that authentic life. I'd really never been happier when I figured all of that out. And it's such a simple thing, but I think women in particular, and you talk about imposter syndrome, I think that's a big part of it. It's just figuring out how to live authentically. And for some reason, I think for women, it doesn't happen until, at least for me, it didn't happen until I was about 40. And I wish it had happened for me when I was about 30, right? It was all better once you figure that out. Maybe I was slow to the table.
I don't think so. I still haven't gotten there.
But it sounds so simple, but mentally it's much harder to do.
Yeah, definitely.
That's such a powerful reminder of that book, Linda. I haven't read it for a very long time, but Brene Brown is so powerful.
Yes.
Learn to be our best selves.
I would agree with that 1000%. Yeah. So let me ask you a fun question here. Is there a field that either one of you never pursued, but you think you probably would have been really quite good at?
Well, I will say I've always had an itch to do landscape architecture. That's always just seemed so creative to me. And I don't know that I would be any good at it, but it's always intrigued me.
I bet you'd be great at it. I
bet you would too.
Great, Vicki.
Just in the short amount of time that I've gotten to know you, Vicki, I think you'd slay it.
You don't know.
Oh, that's going to be your next career.
Maybe.
For sure.
Linda?
Well, so my funny little story is that I went to school actually to be in broadcasting, and I wound up not doing that. I actually was going to be a meteorologist, and I didn't do that because I was going to have to start out by being on air at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't want to get up at 1:30 in the morning because at 21, 22 years old, I was just coming home at 1:30 in the morning. I didn't want to give up my party lifestyle. So I went to work instead for an ad agency right out of college. And that led me to my current employer was my largest client then. But I've always wondered what would have happened if I had indeed gone on to pursue my broadcasting or meteorology career, if I could have actually done that. Now, on a day like today where it snowed, hundreds of inches of snow in Utah, I think I would have been very busy for the last several months. So maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
About meteorologists is they can be wrong, about half the time, and nobody gets too mad at them. So it sounds very appealing.
Yeah, right. Or it's just like, when for every 10 times that a batter gets up to bat, if they hit it successfully 3 times, it's they out of 10, that's huge success. They had a 300 batting average, and that's considered awesome. And they failed 7 times. So we learn from our mistakes, right? But yeah, I think you probably would have got it right more times than not. Oh my goodness, that's great. So 50 years from now, let's project out into the future. What change or particular thing that you would like to see have happened, as if it's already happened in the world?
Well, that's an easy answer for me. I would like to, 50 years from now, come back and look at the world and see that, all of this divisiveness is gone, and that, we can have a difference of opinion and respect each other's differences of opinion, and that we're, much more united in the way that we approach everything, more like in my childhood than what we see today. The world was once a place like that, and I'm not sure how we've arrived in this terrible place of division, but it would certainly be nice to go back to the way it used to be.
Do you have any advice for us on what you think might get us there, or at least moving in the right direction?
Well, I know the thing that's made me much happier is that I'm not on social media. And so I don't know how we encourage the whole rest of the world to do that, but I just gave up on social media because I found it to be, first of all, I thought it was a waste of time. And I wasn't learning anything from it. And I'm, committed to lifelong learning. And so I found I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't improving any relationship that I had by being on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there wasn't, anything that was really collaborative in any of my relationships coming out of that. And so what I found is that I am extremely tolerant of hearing, other people's views when they're not coming through a filter of social media. So perhaps that is the answer. Sorry, my friends who are in the social media business.
Thank you. How about you, Vicki?
Well, I'm very much in the same zone as Linda. I hope that 50 years from now, we will have expanded our humanity toward each other, that we will have grown past this divisiveness that Linda references, and sort of in the Lincoln expression that we will have found our better nature, the better nature of what's the term? The better nature of our angels. But that we will find ways, and I think this happens through families, through school. For me, it happens through meditation, that we can become more anchored in our goodness and sharing our goodness with other people toward a more loving world.
I love that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow. Well, I think we should end on that. That was incredible. I find the same thing with meditation, and being able to ground myself, and I think that I hope that we can get ourselves back to a kinder, loving world, and embracing each other. And I would agree. Social media is, while in some ways is connecting people, it is also dividing people. And if we can find a way to get through that and it be a positive experience, that would be a masterful moment. But I want to thank both of you for joining me today, and for your incredible nuggets of wisdom and advice, and your time. I really appreciate it. And it's easy to see why both of you are ATHENA Award recipients here in Salt Lake City. And I know that the community is better for you being in it. So thank you for being with me today.
I just want to thank you for gathering us. Getting to spend a half hour with Linda and now with you is a highlight of my day, of my week. And that is one of the many things I love about the ATHENA recognition, is it creates a sense of community with other women. And I'm just enjoying all the fruits of that and the things that we can come together and accomplish. So,
yeah, we are stronger together, aren't we?
Yeah, Athenas unite.
I love that. Athenas unite. Definitely. That's great. Thank you. Thank you both.
So nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.